DTC Live On Air is powered by Bright Pill by Sage. In today's episode, I'm joined by Damian from fourfive, and it's a reminder that performance marketing isn't just about spend anymore. It's about creative, clarity, and knowing what actually moves the needle for e-com businesses today. Hi, Damian. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, the company that you work from, and a little bit about what you do there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. So I'm head of performance marketing at fourfive. Been there roughly about 4 months now, so quite new to the business, but yeah, learned a lot already. Fourfive is essentially, we are a wellness nutrition brand, kind of really built on trust. Everything we have is third-party tested, informed sport tested, and I think the main differentiator between us and other brands is probably that our two founders are both ex-professional international rugby players, so George Cruz and Dom Day. So a big focus of our brand is, trust and efficacy in our products, because they've had supplements all throughout their playing career. So they then wanted to, after retiring, build a brand that they could trust and continue to take those supplements.
And what do you do there?
So I'm head of performance marketing, so I'm in charge of the Meta and Google side of things and scaling all those up alongside our head of e-com, who kind of manages the other half of our growth team. So it's kind of like we're a tag team essentially, trying to scale fourfive.
And you've been doing performance marketing for a good few years?
Yeah, so roughly I've been in the industry for like 6 years now, so it seems like a lifetime, and how much has changed. But yeah, I was agency side for about 4 years. And then moved to a company called Ancient and Brave, and then finally at fourfive now.
How did you find the transition from agency to brand?
It's like two different worlds. I found it so interesting. Normally in agency side, you're so focused on, let's just get the best efficiency, let's just do everything. And then brand side, your eyes are almost opened, like you've been blindfolded the whole time. And you just learn so much more about the other aspects of a brand and what actually drives performance and how everything works together. And everything needs to work together to be able to scale in a profitable way.
I suppose you're so focused on a single.
Yeah.
Whereas in agency, you may have been managing like 4 or 5 clients at one time. But obviously not every brand can afford the luxury of having like a full in-house resource, can there? But from like a performance perspective, what makes fourfive different from like other wellness brands and supplements brands that are out there in the market?
Yeah, I think it definitely is the two founders. I think having George and Dom as kind of the faces of our brand. I don't think there's many supplement brands out there that are founded by athletes, and they are the forefront of the business. A lot are just based off, I would say, marketers who kind of know how to sell the product. But I think having George and Dom kind of gives us that another level of trust, saying it is founded by athletes, it's for athletes. A lot of our investors are still high-end professional athletes. So I think that kind of gives us our edge, and our USP is really the kind of the focus on professional sports.
And are they driving a lot of like the creatives then? Are you using them as like the face of the brand when you're running all of your ads?
As and when we can. Obviously, they're both very busy people. But yeah, as and when we can, we try and utilize them as much as possible, because especially, George and Dom, they always convert, always do well. I think George, was like ex-England, played 46 times for England. So it's like having him. There's a specific amount of people who know him in the rugby world, so he always does really well.
And what does like good growth look like for you guys, especially in a category where it's a bit more competitive and it can feel a bit saturated? Yeah,
I think for us, it's not necessarily just like top line revenue and new customer revenue for me. It's definitely we want to be acquiring customers who are willing to stay on for the long term and kind of build that LTV. So we are constantly looking at not just like our blended CAC, but also our top line LTV, making sure any customer we acquire is actually staying for the long haul, and making sure we're kind of acquiring the right customer that way.
And are you doing anything from like that transition from that first purchase through? Like how are you trying to keep them for the long term? Yeah,
so we have a subscription offer, so it's 30% off your first 3 subscriptions, and we also have 3 free gifts dotted in month 2, month 4, and month 6, I think. So it's kind of encouraging people to stay, knowing that they'll get a few free gifts. Most of the time it's like different products that they might not have subscribed to, so they get to taste a bit more of our range. and then also merch as well that we can give them.
Have you tested like the different offers and discounts with the subscription piece to see what has resonated most with the audience, especially like the cold customers coming from Meta?
Yeah, we've been playing around with it. So when I started, we were roughly around, I think, 25%, then it went to 20 and 20, and then we kind of have upped it to 30, and we're kind of seeing the initial wash down of what that has done on our month 4. So it's still early days, but it's proven that we have seen more sticky customers in that first 3 months with that 30%.
Yeah.
I imagine because it's just a bigger discount, so people are a bit more enticed.
I do think you have to be a little bit more bolshy with discounts though, because you're getting someone to commit to what is hopefully a really long time, and I think they need to see like a bigger difference than just buying it one time. Because if they just wanted to sample it, like a 10% off is not really going to swing it for them. They can get that from their email capture, can't they?
Yeah, and I think a lot of our messaging in ads is around taking it for a longer time, so it's not just for a month. It's you need to take it for X amount of time, which is why we kind of give that discount on those first 3 months.
And do you find that your traffic that's coming from cold, is that converting into subscription easy enough?
Yeah, so it's doing pretty well. I think we're roughly around 60-50% is people who are coming straight into a subscription. I think because we really incentivize it. Yeah. So incentivize it on the landing page is kind of the default, and we're really highlighting how much they can save. So we're really trying to push people into that subscription over a one-time purchase.
And when you was at Ancient and Brave, you scaled spend by over like 400% or something. And they landed in the Times fastest growing companies, which is amazing. What did that experience teach you about scaling brands?
Kind of everything. Coming from agency side to them, it was like, as I said before, like really eye-opening. I think the big thing for me is that everything you can, if you really wanted to, you could throw spend up. And your efficiency would come down, but then it would also create stress on all the other areas of the business. So your ops, your marketing team, the finance team, everything kind of needs to work in unison for you to be able to scale as profitably and as quickly as you want. And I think that's the one thing coming from an agency side into a brand that I was like really wasn't aware of before. And I think that's kind of what I learned immediately when we were seeing really great success on Meta. We had to keep in line with our ops team and be like, we're really doing well. Our forecast has completely changed. We need to order more products. So I think that was like the key thing for me there. And also that post-purchase journey. So the subscription side of things, giving those people a bigger discount, then also giving them free gifts, trying to really emphasize making customers sticky. Instead of just buying once and then disappearing. Did
it change anything around your mindset towards like process or reporting from agency to brand?
Yes, definitely. It gave me more, I'd say I have more insight because I'm in the meetings in the brand. So I kind of knew more of what was going on internally rather than just saying, this is what's happened week on week in Meta, in Google. I don't really know why. Can you tell us? I kind of already had that information, so it kind of informed my reporting and my optimizations a little bit more.
And what hasn't translated as easily, would you say?
I would say almost everything. I think on the top line, obviously both supplement brands, both in the DTC space, you think quite similar, but I think someone who buys Ancient and Brave and someone who buys fourfive are two completely different people, and it's trying to understand what the motivations are for each. So I think Ancient and Brave's demographic is obviously a bit of an older demographic, mainly female focused. Fourfive is not much younger, but slightly younger and more male focused. We have a more male dominant audience. So the messaging that necessarily worked for Ancient and Brave didn't really work for fourfive, and it was kind of just working out quickly what would work and how can we kind of expand on that in a fourfive world. But nothing messaging worked. Nothing messaging wise from Ancient and Brave translated really to fourfive.
And like things around like account setup and all of like the more technical pieces of the account management. Did you notice any major change there? I suppose that's where agency land kind of helped.
Yeah, I still ran a very similar setup. It's obviously on a much more scaled back. So I don't have the budget that I had at Ancient and Brave. So it's a more scaled back, more focused kind of setup. Whereas Ancient and Brave, I'm targeting loads of people with different messages. Fourfive is much more scaled back, and I'm targeting maybe a handful compared to what I was targeting at Ancient and Brave.
And we were speaking a bit before about like creatives and, you know, how difficult it is to produce them at like volume now. Obviously, that's like one of the biggest levers in performance
Yep.
marketing now. Like, what has changed to make that true, do you think?
The platforms, I'd say. I think Meta and Google have made it, well, Meta especially, have made creative kind of the focus with Andromeda coming out. Everything kind of needs to be unique, personalized to each kind of person. So with Meta making that change, it's no more around just kind of switching like text on a hook or anything like that. You have to do full creative, new creative, targeting different personas, targeting different pain points. To become a lot more intricate, I would say, our creative design compared to what it used to be because of Andromeda.
So, what are you doing to kind of keep up with the demand?
So we internally at fourfive kind of have weekly sessions. So me, the founder, head of ecom, and our design team will have weekly meetings. I will go through, this is what's worked kind of so far. And then we kind of look to the future, and we have a roadmap where we have what we have planned for each week, and kind of being like, well, what's the angle that we really want to target now within a certain persona? How do we get this pain point, and how can we convey this pain point in 5 different ways? That will be 5 net new ads. And doing it that way kind of feeds Meta what it needs, and it helps us kind of quickly learn from a persona standpoint which one is actually aligning with the brand and what is working and what can we build on further.
I hear so many like different opinions and ways in which that the account should run. Like, I was speaking to a brand who does 9 figures and they don't worry about anything anymore, and they just literally throw as many creatives in as possible and let Meta do the rest.
Yeah.
And the more and more they feed, the better it gets.
Yeah.
Do you have like a take on that? I suppose it's different with budget sizes in terms of like spend.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way. I think if I had the budget, I would just have one campaign, kind of throw it all in there and see what happens. That's kind of how I operated at Ancient and Brave. We had one massive campaign. We had a testing campaign, and then we would throw all the winners into one campaign. And that's kind of how I really scaled there. fourfive, it's slightly a bit different. We still have a testing campaign and a main campaign. But yeah, with what we're doing at the moment is kind of changing that slightly with the persona-led messaging. We're kind of really honing in on those personas each. So our campaign structure has changed a little bit, that we're having one big campaign, but many ad sets, and each ad set's a different persona for us at the moment. And it's kind of something where we're testing at the moment. There's not massive results on it at the moment, but I think with the way the platform going, it's almost like it's its own interest targeting without being interest targeting.
So you're like prepping for what's about to change. What do you think separates like high performing creatives from like average creatives?
I think for video, it's the first 3 seconds. I mean, if you don't hook that person in, it's a non-existent ad. And I think the drop off from 3 seconds is massive in video ads. So that first 3 seconds, understanding what is going to hit a customer, what is going to resonate with them, what can make them relate to you and want to buy from you is massively important. And it's something that we look at all the time for our video ads, knowing that most of the time what we test isn't going to work, but having those kind of few ones that do work, that have above a 25% hook rate, then we look into that and be like, oh, is it the messaging? Is it the creator? Is it the setting that they're in? And then kind of iterate on that through the rest of our creators and kind of constantly improving.
How do you think that brands that have got these smaller budgets can keep up with the creative demand that's needed?
It is tricky. I think we've been fortunate enough that one of our founders is willing at home to just step in front of the camera and just make ads. But I think the barrier for creative now is probably never really been lower. I think, one, you can use AI. I know a lot of people are against AI, but we use AI here and there. Maybe for like, if we're doing like a pack shot, it's easier to then do it on AI and we can add and design a static ourselves. But also, yeah, I think anyone with a phone can just create content quite easily. Even if it's a static, you can just take it on your phone. Even they don't have to be facing the camera. Like, their face doesn't have to be on camera. You could just do a video of you making the product and then having, for example, 3 reasons to take fourfive, and they always work really well. Anything that kind of feels native in that Instagram reel feed does really well for us.
Did you target like a split in terms of what you're going to produce from like video to statics?
We always try to kind of have a dominant focus on video, so around about 70%.
Okay.
We also have like a UGC agency that's helping us find creators and getting content from them. And then the statics are kind of the more really kind of brand led, polished, further down the funnel a little bit more.
Yeah.
Whereas the UGC and the videos, we can be a bit more playful and a bit more
I was going to
organic.
say, like, how are you balancing like the brand led piece with more performance led creatives? Because I think some brands have got such a they're a stickler for how things are looking and how things are representing the brand. Is that something that you've had to come out, like, work over? Or
Yeah, it's like the age old battle of like performance v brand, and I think it was never more true than at Ancient and Brave. They are such an aesthetic brand, and it's kind of where they've got to. The reason why they've gotten to where they are now is because of that brand and how they look and feel across everything. But we at Ancient and Brave, we learned that you need that mix, especially with the creative diversity. People are going to react differently to different ads. So people might not want to see a brand ad. And I feel like most of us now have like an ad filter on our head. If we see an ad on Instagram, a lot of brand ads, you just kind of scroll past. You're not really that interested. But Ancient and Brave, what our focus for like the high end content was always statics. And if we were doing big campaign launches, so for example, when they got Davina, all of that stuff was quite high end, quite polished. But I think that fit for them because Davina is normally seen on TV, and that's normally a bit of a more of a polished angle anyway. So yeah, we normally did video would always be UGC for Ancient and Brave unless it was Davina, and then statics would be really high end. And then we started playing a little bit with lo-fi statics as well.
have you ever like worked on a campaign where you've like heavily invested in it and it's, you know, it's been a big spend and then it's flopped?
Yes. I think early days of Ancient and Brave, when I first started and saying that, we need UGC, and they were like, that's completely against brand guidelines, we don't want to go with it. We were heavily invested in the kind of the brand content. And back then they didn't really have that brand authority to kind of have that presence on Meta, and it didn't necessarily work so well. So building up the UGC, kind of getting that engagement through the account really helped us then being like, this is how we're going to introduce people to the brand, and then we can kind of send them finally off on a polished static with maybe an offer. And they go into the website, which is even more polished, and it kind of then feeds through altogether.
Do you think that's something that brands should look at mapping out in the early days? Like, this is how we want to be seen, like this is how we want to be introduced, because it's so different across all of your different channels, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that something that should be mapped out early on to give you an idea, or is it something that could change too frequently where it wouldn't make sense?
I think it absolutely is, and it's something, as you just mentioned, you can kind of continue to test on. But I think you kind of want to work out, how is the customer journey going to look? And I think we've just recently done this at fourfive, and we're touching on it a bit more with personas. We're going to have, say, for example, new parents, and how can these supplements help this demographic of people? And then we're going to feed them through to a specific landing page for them. And it's kind of then the content will all flow for them.
Yeah.
As opposed to kind of being jumbled up. It should all be focused on a similar messaging, and they kind of see the same messaging as they go through the funnel.
What's one thing that brands like still get really wrong when it comes to the strategy around creatives?
I think volume. I think for them, a lot of people, it's either too little or too much. A lot of the time, it's probably recently too much. I think when Andromeda first came out, people were like, we need loads and loads of creative. I think I saw on LinkedIn, some people were saying you need hundreds of creative. But recently people have realized it actually needs to kind of be new ideas and not just kind of loads and loads of volumes. It kind of needs to be that net new concepts are more important than volume. And then obviously smaller brands and even bigger brands are guilty of having too little. They're not feeding Meta enough content. So the content that they do have that works, they try and scale spend, and then the performance drops off a cliff because most creators won't last that long if you really stress test them with spend. And then they don't have any backup to kind of keep feeding the machine. And then performance and CAC kind of drops.
Do you do anything to keep track of the creatives? Like, do you use any spreadsheets or external systems that kind of help you, keep on top of what's, obviously you'll see inside the ad account what's performing, but, so you've got a bit of like a history on these have worked well before, we should do more of these. Yeah,
so I have a whole creative roadmap kind of Google Sheet, and it houses everything from my naming convention to all the results, to the ideation. So it kind of is a worksheet that everyone can use and can look into. But then on the results thing, I will have who the persona is, what the angle was, what the hook was, the results from that, and then even preview links to each of the ads, and then kind of some notes where I'm like, this is what worked, this is what isn't worked. And they all kind of have a batch number as well. So you can kind of relate it back to, oh, in this batch, what actually worked well when we first started testing this persona and this angle. Can we find out what worked? If whatever worked, can we iterate on that and try and say it in a new way? But yeah, everything we do is tracked across everything pretty much, and the naming convention helps with that because it helps us pull out certain information from each one.
Did you pick that up from agency life, or is that something that you'd kind of built on as you was at Ancient and Brave?
Definitely agency life. I think when you're working with so many brands, and we had a data team that could build our dashboards, having it in the naming convention, and then we can pick certain parts out of the naming convention. So if it's, for example, a persona, you can then have a graph with all your personas, what is performing the best, what's spending the most, what's getting the best efficiency. So yeah, it's kind of it's the way I've kind of always worked, and yeah, kind of translated that into in-house.
And what does like a good testing roadmap look like? Do you work in like sprints of 4 weeks or shorter periods? Like how do you work?
So we have weekly meetings, but we aren't in those meetings. We're probably planning for creative 2 weeks ahead, so because to give our designers time to kind of get the content and to get content from UGC creators. But we kind of have just a rolling roadmap, and it's essentially each time we go to those meetings, it's like, oh, this is the persona we're going to try and stress test this week. So it's going to be, I don't know, new parents or maybe athletes. And then we go into those meetings and we're thinking, well, what angle do we really want to go behind this week? And I think, for example, new parents, we're talking about how they can optimize their sleep. So it's more about making the most out of the 4 hours that they get, because they're never going to really get 8 hours.
No, never. I can vouch for that.
Yeah, so that's like the angle we go after. And then once we have that main idea, we're kind of like, what ads can we make behind this one idea? And we kind of make 5 or 10 different ads.
Does that tend to be quite a collaborative session then? It's not just on you to kind of think of all these new angles all the time.
Yeah, and
must be hard.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to work. I think ideas for creative can come from anyone, even if they're not in the performance marketing world. Everyone sees ads on Meta on a daily basis, so kind of people can see, oh, I like this ad, so why don't we make something like this? So we kind of have in Slack an ad inspiration channel where everybody in the team is in, so they can just drop ads in and be like, can we try and test this? Like even the finance team are like dropping ads in and being like, why don't we test this kind of ad?
What do you use for like things like your hook generator and stuff? Do you work on like through AI to kind of help with things like that? Like what prompting have you found useful?
Yeah, I think it's partly from the experience that I've had, knowing like some like 3 reasons why, or I didn't know about this until. There's certain hooks that you can kind of always test, but then I always use like Claude is my best friend, I would say right now.
I've just made the switch.
It's so good. I think for me, having that capability, I use mainly he's like a junior creative strategist for me. I go out and ask him to mine all of our reviews, find me reasons why people are buying, and then from there I can kind of build out hooks. I also ask him for hook ideas, and kind of they give suggestions, not always right, but you can kind of tweak them a little bit and then go on from there. He's also connected to my Meta account, so you can constantly see what's working and kind of feed data off that back into our hooks as well.
So is the reviews piece the biggest driver for it all then?
Yeah, I think understanding the reason why your customers is buying is an easy way then to kind of convince other people to buy. And you can normally find quite good hooks in those reviews, because people will always say, oh, it's life-changing, it helped me with this, it helped me sleep more, it helped me stay hydrated, helped me hit PBs, things like that. There's loads of like nuggets of information that you can find in reviews.
Yeah, that's good. And it's all automatically connected to your Claude account. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's the same with like my weekly reports, all come from Claude, and I get it every Monday morning at 9 in Slack. So it gives me like a top line view of everything, and then I can kind of delve in deeper if I need to.
And was there like a test that you've done recently that surprised you, either because it massively outperformed what you was expecting, or it was like a complete flop?
Yeah, I think it goes back to George and Dom. So George's ads that we test really aren't ads. It's more anecdotally him talking about things, and it's him talking about his playing career and how supplements they took impacted what they did, how they would be hooked from training if they weren't hydrated. All those kind of storytelling ads for us have kind of worked quite well from George's perspective. And I guess it's kind of, for us, it was probably like opening the doors a little bit into that professional world and what happens there. But those kind of ads, I when I saw them, I was like, this isn't an ad. Like, we can't really run this. I don't think it would do well. But then it's still one of the best performers in our account.
Well, it'll feel so natural on the feed, won't it? Of the people that are searching for, or that's the type of content that they're used to consuming.
Exactly. It was like in a very much like a podcast setup like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, I think that hit the nail on the head. We found out that more kind of lo-fi native content that feels more like what somebody would see in just a normal scroll, it seems to be working really well for us.
DTC Live On Air is powered by Bright Pill by Sage. And where are you typically sending like your traffic? Is it going landing pages, PDP? Where are you sending it?
So mainly, PDPs for us. Unless we have, for example, we launched creatine recently, and we're kind of then sending them to a creatine collection page because we have them as separate products, but then we have a bundle with the creatine in, and we're actually seeing quite a lot of people go for the bundle. So it's like we're not even directly saying to buy the bundle, but people see it as a good deal, so then they're buying it, which is increasing our AOV as well. But most of the time it is PDP, and we're doing a lot of work currently on our PDP to kind of build it up and then be able to alter it slightly for each persona and change the content that's on there for the certain ads that we're sending people to.
And do you not use landing pages at all really anymore?
Not massively. It's something we're kind of talking about testing, so kind of like shoppable blogs and things like that, but it's still very early for us. So I think it is in the roadmap for us to start testing kind of different landing pages. But at the moment, we're focused on kind of building out our product pages and kind of tailoring content for each persona.
That'll be really interesting to see. And that'll all run from the same product page.
Yes, we'll have like a block, and then we'll be able to like change out certain things for each one. So we'll have dedicated landing pages. And the idea is then to kind of be able to map LTV to each persona, because we'll only be sending meta traffic.
That'll be interesting to see how that goes. Yeah. I imagine it'll perform really well because they'll feel like they're reading about themselves.
Yeah. Hopefully, because this is something I've been pitching for months already. So like, if it all goes wrong, then yeah.
Hopefully it all goes well. And then last bit around like creatives, I guess, like how do you know, like, obviously, like, you know, you've been doing it for years and years and years, but obviously for the people listening or the ones that, you know, don't have an in-house resource, like how should they know when to scale a piece of creative versus to keep testing or to just can it and move on? I think that can be a problem as well, like getting attached to something that you've created.
Yeah, so I kind of run it on a 2-weekly basis. So every week I will launch a batch of new ads and turn off a batch of ads. And I keep that batch of ads running for 2 weeks in an ABO campaign. So they each get their own, each ad set gets their own budget. And then I just let it run for 2 weeks. I think especially early days of meta, performance can fluctuate so much that people will then just sometimes can an ad, but it's actually doing pretty well. So it's important to leave it for, I think, an extended period of time just to let it test. There is signs that some ads aren't working. So for example, if it's spent hundreds and hundreds of pounds and its CPA is through the roof, there's probably a reason to pause it. But most of the time, I just like letting them spend for 2 weeks and see what happens. Because most of the time as well, if they've got really good engagement metrics, they're clearly doing something in the funnel. And it may be that they're getting people to site, but actually another ad in a different campaign is actually then converting them to purchase. So it's tricky, I would say. Like even me, sometimes I'm like, oh, do I pause this? Do I not pause this? But yeah, I think if it's got really high CPAs, engagement is low, there's reason to can it. But if it's got really high engagement, kind of inquire, why isn't it converting people? Is it maybe the offer that we have on the page? Is it the landing page we're sending it to? Because it is clearly engaging people and it's getting people to site.
Yeah. Do you have like specific metrics that you'll follow, or not you, but like maybe should people have like a specific metric that they follow as a rule of thumb if they're either just getting started with it or not really sure what they're looking at in the ad account?
So I mainly look at the kind of 3 metrics that I look at are for video anyway. Obviously static we wouldn't have hook rate, but video is hook rate. Kind of look at click-through rate as well, just as a benchmark, not as a driver of performance, because I've seen ads with low click-through rates, but they have really good performance. And then mainly kind of CPA. But I also look at it throughout the whole. So my columns in Meta are set up as the funnel journey. So it's like click, landing page view, content view, add to basket, initiate checkout, and then purchase. So I can see across the whole journey, where are people falling off? And then from that, you can kind of analyze a little bit more. Oh, they're seeing the ad, they're getting to site, they're adding to basket, but they're not converting. So why aren't they converting?
Yeah.
You can kind of look at in depth a bit more that way.
Yeah, you can't just be solely in the ad account. You've really got to look at the bigger picture of everything, haven't you?
Exactly.
And like, just thinking about like attribution, like that's always like a real tough thing for anyone that's running ads, isn't it? How are you thinking about measuring success today?
It just feels like I always feel with attribution, no one really knows what's happening. It's all kind of just everyone's guessing. But for us, we use kind of like a blended method, a blended CAC. So we look at Google plus meta spend divided by our new customers in Shopify, and that kind of gives us our North Star on where our acquisition performance is. But then we obviously look at LTV as well. So if our LTV, and that's by product, so we have LTV by product. So if our LTV is really strong on some products, we'll be like, oh, maybe we'll push this a bit more in meta and see if that maintains. But yeah, CAC, LTV are the big kind of the two metrics that we look at.
And the LTV piece will be mainly because it's a subscription consumable. Like obviously if someone was selling fashion, or they would probably look at that in a different way, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, LTV is like kind of life and soul of the business. Like if we don't have a good LTV, we will struggle.
Yeah.
But making sure our LTV is really strong so we can kind of then, if we're like profitable on second purchase, we can then really push our CAC a little bit more.
And what about for you, like in your role, like what does success look like? Obviously you are targeted, I imagine, on like your numbers. Like how does that look for you?
So my main goal is just growing kind of new customer revenue month on month. But I think, part of that will be the LTV, acquiring the right customer. It won't necessarily be, I'll just go out and get any new customer that we can. It's trying to find loyal customers that will make them stick around for a bit longer and really help our performance overall. I mean, subscription brands, as everyone knows, kind of you are built off your returning revenue. Like that's kind of your buffer and helps the new customer revenue.
And what's one metric that you think brands are relying on too heavily right now?
I think me and other performance marketers would probably agree with it. It's probably ROAS. I think ROAS in the ad accounts is just, I can't, the amount of times I used to get asked what's our ROAS like, but essentially it is just, you can kind of like make ROAS look better than it is a lot of the time. For example, it literally is just spend and revenue. So it's just kind of, for example, if you really wanted to boost your ROAS, you could just push it all to retargeting and make it look really good. Or you could do vice versa and pull prospecting spend. And then, it's just, for me, ROAS isn't a great indicator of success. It can be like a good secondary metric to look at if you're looking at ad performance and saying, oh, this ad is actually driving more ROAS because it's got a higher AOV. But I wouldn't look at it as like a performance indicator in Meta.
And do you use any other like third-party tools or software for managing like your attribution? So
we have Triple Whale. I don't look into it too much. I more trust our kind of blended CAC.
Okay.
They look at our blended CAC, and then if, say, for example, we had a really bad day or a really bad week, I can then look at what we did that week. Oh, Meta spend went up. So there must be something in Meta that's causing us to see an increase in CAC. I think over-reliance in like people like Triple Whale. I think Triple Whale it's a great tool for us, but I think I don't necessarily know how their attribution works. And I don't think they necessarily let you know how it works either. So I'm always a bit...
Yeah, like what's actually creating
how are they justifying certain things to certain people?
Yeah.
So just having that kind of awareness on your own top line numbers, I think, is probably more important for us.
And when you're looking at increasing media spend, what tends to be the first thing that could break?
Normally the creative. So normally people increase spend. They see a creative that's doing really well. You'll increase spend maybe 50% on it, but then they've never stress tested it at a higher level of spend, and then it just kind of fizzles out. And then again, they have nothing to feed back in to kind of replace that creative. And I think that's kind of a trap that a lot of brands fall into. They kind of just scale spend before ads are ready. Whereas I prefer to kind of just scale slowly and just like... How
incremental is it? Is it like 10%, 20%, or is it just what are you feeling based on the account?
It's kind of, it depends on where we are with CAC most of the time, but I think 10 to 20% is roughly where I push it the most.
Yeah.
Give it 10% or 20%, sit for 3 days. Is it still performing? Push it again. Don't just kind of like dump spend into it.
And was there ever a point where you've had to like slow down growth to protect the performance?
Yes, I think not necessarily protect performance, but more, I guess it kind of goes hand in hand with both, like with ops and stuff. If they don't have the product and then it goes out of stock, then that harms your performance in Meta because the person can't buy the product. So it's kind of in that scenario. I've been in that a few times for a few different brands where you've done really successfully, but then you have to kind of pull back the spend because they have to meet the demand that they're not.
It's usually around Q4, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always the busiest time of the year.
But I suppose that's why, I mean, you know, I'm coming from an agency point of view, but that's why we were so insistent on like, let's talk about like your Q4 plans as early on in the year as possible. Like in Q1, really, we should be knowing what the plan is for Q4 or having a rough idea so that, you know, stock forecasting and things like that aren't on the back burner.
I think it's also, talking to them as well about retail. So that if they're going into a new retail store, because they always take stock up front and then pay later. So it's more, I've been in a situation where, brands have gone into retail and then realized they don't have any DTC stock. So it's kind of keeping that, the message open about what the stock level is and how much we can actually push.
Yeah. Inventory planning is very important.
Yes.
And what's one like scaling mistake that you've made in the past and it's really changed how you approach Meta in particular now?
I think it will be scaling before the creative was ready. I think so. In the past, you're seeing success again. You're pushing spend up, but you're not introducing any new creative into the account. It's always vital, I think, to have like a weekly pipeline of creative. So you're kind of introducing new ads constantly to the account, which then allows you to scale more because Meta is constantly getting newness. If you're just scaling and nothing new's coming in, that performance will drop off eventually. So I think that's something that I've learned, and everywhere, any business I go into now, I'm kind of like, what's your creative pipeline? We need it weekly basis. We need 10 to 20 creatives a week. Knowing that most of those creatives will fail, but some will then go into the BAU scaling and kind of keep building that scaling.
Yeah. What role do you think that media buyers play now in comparison to like a few years ago?
I think it's definitely changed. So when we used to be much more, I would say, scientific. You'd be more in the details, kind of optimizing constantly, kind of looking at like what interest stacks can we use, what lookalikes can we use. That's seemingly all just gone now. And I think media buyers are transitioning more into creative strategies and kind of building all those creative strategies, understanding what creators work. It is still scientific, but it's kind of scientific in a different way. We're kind of now focused on, how do we make these creatives? What works with this creative? How can we extend this creative? As opposed to what optimizations can I make in platform? Because that's kind of all disappeared with everything being broad.
And do you think that will continually, obviously it's going to evolve as more AI gets introduced to our day-to-day lives, but do you think that it'll get to a point where it'll cover like the creative strategy, or do you think it's going to always need that human oversight and touch?
I think it's always going to need human oversight. I think AI, even now that people are connecting, for example, Claude to their Meta to try and make changes. But I think it's always going to need human oversight. I think even you look at Google and Meta and their recommendations, most of them are spend more, do this, give me more money.
Because they're only ever going to have the one interest
in
mind, isn't it?
Exactly. So I think it always needs a bit of human oversight, but it's just more of a light touch now. And it's more, I guess we're going back into actual marketers, like thinking of big creative ideas and what makes people buy, as opposed to how can I serve a generic ad to someone in this interest audience.
I bet you it's enabled you to have much more like capacity though. In a way.
Yeah, a little bit still. Yeah, I'd say, I mean, I don't have an ad building tool yet. I know some people do, but we just don't have the scale to warrant one. So I'm still ad building a lot of the time. But yeah, it definitely has, especially in the reporting world. Like I can kind of just get a report given to me now, and then I can look through it a little bit more in detail in any warning signs that I see from that report. So it's definitely saved me a lot of time on a Monday, not reporting. Yeah. And I think not being in the weeds of the account is much better, and thinking, let's launch a new audience, let's do this, let's do that. Just thinking more creatively.
Yeah. And is that the bit that you enjoy?
Yeah, I do enjoy thinking of creatives, and I enjoy having like brainstorm sessions with teams.
Yeah.
And thinking where we can go next, what new persona can we target. Yeah, definitely more enjoyable than just being in numbers and spreadsheets all day.
Yeah. And what do you think that most brands are going to have to like unlearn over the next few years?
I think there's still probably a lot of brands that are stuck in kind of, again, meta of the old days, thinking interest targeting still works, thinking like, look at like stacks. I mean, some of them do still work, but I feel at scale they don't. They quickly kind of fizzle out. So I think a lot of brands are still stuck in that world. And I think a lot of brands are probably still stuck in a volume world where they're changing little bits on the ad, but not changing the ad itself. So that's probably another one. I think, yeah. I mean, meta is changing so much. Everything I'm saying now will probably be different in 3 years, and that's probably everything that I'll have done learn. But yeah, I know a lot of brands are still scared of meta and giving into the algorithm, and I think that's probably what they'll have to start unlearning. Just meta evolved.
What's the split between like Google and Meta for you guys?
Heavily in meta. I think for Google, for us, it is a focus, but it's not we're using it quite a lot for brand protection at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, the supplements we have, it's such a crowded space.
Yeah.
So for example, like electrolytes, creatine, even functional mushrooms, there's so many big players in that market that it's hard for us to then warrant spending loads and loads and loads to get into that market until we've kind of scaled a bit more. So Meta is kind of our main focus. Google more of a brand protection piece with a PMAX on the side that we're slowly scaling, but not a massive spend. Splits around about 80 to 20%, I think.
Okay. And then what about TikTok?
I think with our budgets, I recommend that we just solely focus on Meta for now.
Yeah.
Focus on one channel, get that running successfully, and then move into other channels that we can potentially find.
Does it worry you when a big update happens then, if that's like the biggest chunk of your revenue?
Yeah, terrifies me. Especially when Meta has bugs and outages, it's kind of, a bit difficult. But I think it's better for us to be that way with Meta is the biggest channel still by far.
I think it is for like most brands, but it's just about like they just try and diversify their spend a little bit, don't they? But I think most brands like Meta is the soul.
I think for us the plan is to diversify eventually. I think right now we're just on such low spend, it just makes sense for us to focus on one and then expand out from that.
And what about like your influencer strategy? Is that something that you touch on, I imagine, like from a creative point of view? Like are you actively like constantly looking at influencers to kind of like feed the creative strategy that you've got running?
So our brand marketing, or our marketing person kind of deals with our influencers, but she is in our weekly sessions that we have on those ads, and that's kind of when we're talking about influencers. So if it's a new persona, for example, new parents, we're like, what kind of influencers that can we find that align with this messaging? And that's kind of how we're doing it on a weekly basis, and for helping her find the people that she needs to find. And reach out to. I think that's kind of the goal. We also have 2 like ambassadors that are friends of the brand and have been for a long time.
Are they sports personalities as well, or?
Yeah, they are not necessarily they are athletes, but not in like professional sense of the word. They're both kind of influencers, but are doing like huge challenges. So like Jack Jarvis is running from Beijing to London, and then Esme is running around the whole of the UK. She's doing like 5,000 kilometers.
People are impressive, aren't they?
Exactly, but it kind of fits into that, like the brand that we have.
Yeah.
And we're kind of like supporting them along the way.
And do you find that helps with like the performance marketing, like having those ambassadors? Is that something that's always worked well for supplement brands that you've been in?
Absolutely. I mean, Ancient Brave Davina kind of changed the business overnight as soon as we launched her. It just like adds a level of authenticity and trust.
Yeah.
And it kind of is, then people see those kind of people and be like, oh, why is this person I trust so interested in this brand? Maybe I should be as well. And it kind of helps us.
It's mad how much influence people can have.
I know. It is crazy.
Over something that they've not even created themselves. Like they've got the only affiliation they've got with it is that they're being paid very well to
exactly. And I think with Davina, it was great that she like organically posted about Ancient and Brave originally, and then they managed to work out an ambassador deal with her.
Well, she's such like a likable person anyway, isn't she? That I imagine that when she gets involved with something like...
And she's such a spokesperson for that demographic that like it just was an instant like success for them. It was like the perfect ambassador for the perfect brand at the perfect time, and it kind of really changed the business. And I think our goal with fourfive is we're trying to get those people before they get huge. So obviously there's people like the Hardest Geezer who ran the whole of Africa. We're obviously getting these people before they've done their challenge in the hope that they kind of then blow up.
And do you do any like sponsorship of people that are going into like these challenges to have the name out there?
Yes, we do. And I think we always are looking for people who are kind of like doing these big challenges and kind of need sponsors. Yeah, definitely Esme and Jack. I think we've known about their challenges for a while. So we wanted to get in early doors.
And what are you planning to test from a creative or a channel perspective next?
I think our big thing is now this persona-led kind of structure. So having our campaigns split by the personas with all those different kind of, so say for example, an athlete-focused ad in one ad set, then that feeds through into an athlete-focused landing page, which we then can track all the LTV and the product LTV for that certain persona. So it's kind of like a large-scale test that we're kind of putting together at the moment. And that's kind of quite exciting because hopefully it will completely change the way that we think about our ads and our landing pages and it all working together.
And if you were starting work on a brand from scratch, day dot, no ad account history, how would you approach the scaling of that brand?
I initially would focus really narrow. So I'd think, who is our key demographic in this audience? What is the reason they buy? Let's not think of anyone else. Let's not think of any other persona. Let's focus on this specific set of people, scale them, and then once we scaled them to a level we're happy and we can spend a bit more, we can kind of then create extension personas where we can look into delving into different pockets of different people. But yeah, I would initially start trying to find the one audience that you kind of really resonate with on Meta, scaling that and then focusing on different personas afterwards.
And would you have like a minimum spend that you would advise or a minimum budget that you would put behind something?
I've worked with brands freelance that I've done roughly around like £200 a day and they see success and then you kind of slowly incrementally build it.
Yeah. And last question, what's one belief that you held about performance marketing a few years ago that you no longer agree with?
That the efficiency of your performance marketing is the be all and end all of the business. I think that came from me in the performance world where I was so focused on like CAC or like acquisition ROAS. That's all I ever looked at. But now being in-house and knowing everything else that I know, I think it's kind of, that is only like a small part in the big machine. Like you kind of need everything to be singing on the same hymn sheet for everything to work and scale properly.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
DTC Live On Air is powered by Bright Pill by Sage.